Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Ben 10 Retrospectives. And today we're going to be looking at the second Ben 10 movie to be made, / the first live action movie that Ben 10 made, Ben 10 Race Against Time. And as I just mentioned, it's the first live action Ben 10 movie. As such, there was a lot of hype built behind this when I was a kid. The first time I saw the ad for this was when I first saw Secret of the Omnitrix. I was watching it, enjoying myself. Then they got to an ad, it got to an ad, and as I'm watching it, I see all these. The ad was pretty much just this. It was like all those little green balls or black balls just floating in a void like you would expect from Ben 10. And then it just starts listing off all these names, and I'm just thinking to myself, what's this? And I just see a glimpse of one of Ben's name. He blasts in there, and I'm realizing, oh my god, and then when it says hero, it starts showing all these live action images of Diamond Head, Diamond Head, Gwen, Heat Blast, and it just looked. I was hyped. I was really hyped, and I was really looking forward to seeing this movie when it came out. I did look forward when I was a kid, when I first saw this movie, to see a live action version of Ben 10. I thought, oh man, this is cool, this is awesome, and even I did follow this movie as much as I could. I remember watching the first 5 minutes or whatever when it was put on air, and I remember loving the heck out of it. I actually thought it was awesome. Now that I'm grown up, my opinion of the movie has changed. Admittedly, it's not as good as I remember it. I don't like saying that, but that's admittedly what it is. So, before I get into that, I might as well talk about this movie, about the plot and everything. For this movie, like with Goodbye and Good Riddance, Ben is done Ben's road trip is done. He's back home in his town of Bellwood. He's readjusting to a normal life, yada yada yada. Essentially, this was the first time the plot was done. This plot was done though, and I think this movie's existence is the reason Goodbye and Good Riddance was considered a lost episode. That deals with the tropes that some of the similar tropes that Goodbye and Good Riddance had to deal with. Ben having to get used to a normal life again, have to keep his powers a secret, pretty much the same things. There are even similar discussions of keep the Omnitrix a secret. You gotta get used to what you have, yada yada yada, yada yada. But in the meantime, when Ben is back, being Ben 10, a new threat arises. A threat by the name that we eventually learn is named Eon. This strange alien time traveler who wears a black cloak, black gauntlets with purple lines in it, a cool glass helmet, and he has a British accent, which I like British accents, and he's got a nice filtered voice, and pretty much he means business. As the very first scene you see with him is actually the very first scene of the movie, where he just starts blasting things up with time rays and so forth, just destroying everything. So of course Ben goes in to fight him. He thinks he defeats him. But in a later scene, Gwen's developing photos for the Bellwood Elementary School yearbook because apparently they do go to school here, at least. Which I will give this movie flack for, at least in Goodbye and Good, because the first episode of Ben 10 established that Ben and Gwen don't go to the same school or are in the same town. I don't know, and so as such, Goodbye and Good Riddance, to make the excuse for how they were in the same place, was made the excuse that Gwen moved there. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. As Gwen's developing footage, because earlier in the scene as she was taking pictures, Ben did a photo bomb. As she's developing the photo with Ben in it, or Ben Ben pulls it up. They find this little blurry section, and then when they enhance the blurry section, they find Eon, which makes them realize that Eon not only is still alive, but he knows who Ben is, just the fact that he was there. As such, when Max comes in and sees the photo, he explains who Eon is, and that they need to go on and so he wants to check on something. So he gets Ben and Gwen into the rust bucket. They go off to travel to a plumber site. To an old plumber site where Eon's supposed to be kept, but when they find where Eon is supposed to be held, cryostasis, they find his chamber is destroyed. It looks like it's gone, so Max goes to look for the plumber that was looking after him, that was supposed to be guarding him, Constantine Jacobs, and they find what essentially is a corpse, or at least the closest thing, as he's still alive, he's just very, very old and frail. he mentions that Eon escaped and that he's after Ben, but Ben doesn't know why, and Max doesn't seem to want to tell anything. But then, as such, when Constantine Jacobs does what does croak, they go back off to Bellwood because Constantine Jacobs reveals that Eon is looking for something called the hardware store. Ben, of course, thinks it's some top secret plumber base with all these high tech security, yada yada yada. And it turns out it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a hardware store. It's actually pretty amusing. But of course, Ben is thinking, "What's going on? What is this? I've been in here before." But it turns out that there is actually a secret to it, as Max manages to hit a secret switch with a key, turning it 3 times and flush it and doing a little flush, which caused an elevator to go up. So the team go inside the elevator, and when they go down to the lower level, they find pretty much an active group of plumbers. As Max mentioned, that while the plumbers were retired, they kept a few active just in case they needed them. And pretty much the plumbers are all these random people around the town, like this woman who ran a malt shop, the principal, a mailman. Pretty much all these adults across Bellwood are pretty much members of the plumbers. As such, and when they're there, they guide the Tennysons to this more of this underground base, so forth. And they revealed so they mentioned these earlier, so that's not really coming out of nowhere. They show the Tennysons what Eon was after. This weapon that he brought to Earth with him, called the Hands of Armageddon. Pretty much they reveal that Eon's plan is that he wants to use the Hands of Armageddon to pretty much destroy the world, and he brought them with him. But 2 centuries prior, because apparently plumbers are that old. Excuse me. Apparently, when the plumbers managed to actually defeat Eon, him being the very first alien they ever took in, and they confiscated the hands. Over the years, they have tried to destroy the Hands of Armageddon, but every time they try, the hands just find some way to divert what they did and use it to cause some great disaster, like forming the Grand Canyon, the Great Chicago Fire, or a Great Quake of '87. Pretty much, these things are indestructible, and they hold great power, so they can't let Eon get their hands on it. But Eon get their hands on it. But in the meantime, one of Eon's minions, because Eon does have his minions, which are pretty much these things in cloaks and helmets, and they're apparently skilled fighters. And a pop-up edition stated they were just twisted, mangled versions of all these great fighters in history that Eon took. They break in, as it turns out that one of them was tailing him, so they all somehow get into the base. I don't know how. Maybe Eon teleported them in, because that's one of Eon's powers. Eon manages to... But through all the fighting, Eon manages to knock out a plumber that's near the hands, and it looks like he's about to activate them, but just as he gets this purple orb ready, he tries putting in the hands, but the hands don't respond. So instead, at that time, in the meantime, as all this action's going down, Ben's about to go alien, but then just before he transforms, suddenly the Omnitrix starts glowing purple, and Ben seems to be freaking out. Then Eon appears to him and somehow gets him up to the top floor, as the scene has him being dragged away, and then next thing you know, they're outside the hardware store. He's dragging him outside the hardware store, which kind of feels weird to me, considering that in order to get to the secret plumber base, you had to take an elevator, which they show in a scene. It's actually a rather humorous scene. It actually goes down quite a ways. So it evokes a funny image to me. It actually just makes me think that he drags him to the elevator, and then in the meantime he gets it to go to the top floor, and they're either just struggling or they're just waiting till the elevator doors open. It's just a funny image. But anyway, regardless of how they get up there, Ben manages to get away from Eon, but he finds that the Omnitrix isn't working, so he can't go alien, so he improvises by grabbing a bike and running, but Eon takes control of all these cars and uses them to corner Ben in an alley. And so Eon makes this giant speech about that he needs Ben for his plans, but of course Ben still doesn't know what. But before he can reveal what exactly it is, a plumber, which is this old Asian guy that you saw before, manages to shoot him off. Manages to shoot Eon, because... Don't ask me how he got there, actually, I don't. No, he's pretty much a big damn hero, as he just appears and saves Ben, but either way, bottom line, so Eon is fended off for now. Ben makes it home, Ben makes it home where Max is waiting for him, and Max says that apparently that maybe the reason the Omnitrix acted the way it is that maybe Eon's after it, and that he wants to use it to power the Hands of Armageddon. So they think that the safest thing to do to stop Eon is to get Ben out of town. But Ben, being Ben, says, "I don't want to do this. I'm gonna face him. I'm not. I want to confront him." But and Max agrees, but only on the condition that he has to be watched by the plumbers. So pretty much Ben wants to lure Eon into a trap, but because there are plumbers everywhere, he can't do anything. But in the meantime, just feeling kind of the pressure of all this, he goes inside a gym where he meets with the principal, who I think I mentioned he was a plumber. I might have mentioned that. Yes, I think I might have. They have a nice talk, but just when the talk's about to end, the principal is just thrown across. Is somehow the principal's time is reversed, and he's thrown across the room into a container of dodgeballs. The Omnitrix freaks out, and Eon appears, and he starts messing with the Omnitrix, but Ben is able to break free and manages to go alien, fighting Eon off, managing to fend Eon off. But in order to break free, Ben also hit the fire alarm, so a bunch of kids are going to be running through the courtyard through the gym. So Eon makes a getaway, and Ben has to hide in the girls' locker room until the Omnitrix times out. So as such, when he comes out, he mentions that just when Eon attacked him, he wanted Ben alone. And with all the plumbers around, Ben he couldn't do that. So Ben decides to play his game and go somewhere alone. Gwen follows him because she thinks it's a stupid plan. But while they're doing this, Max manages to find them and says that and I think he pretty much tells them to regroup. But as they're about to leave, the rust bucket, and actually a shocking moment to me as a kid, blows up. The rust bucket, the transportation, this high-tech piece of plumber equipment that the Tennysons have been traveling in throughout the whole series, is completely destroyed. No joke. It is obliterated. And in the chaos of it, Eon's minions manage to grab Ben, Gwen, and Max and knock them out. Or at least I assume they knock them out. The next scene you see with them is them waking up Ben the underground plumber base. So I don't know. Bottom line, they're in the underground plumber base with the Hands of Armageddon. All the plumbers have been locked in a closet, which is just an amusing thought in itself. Just the fact that Eon took the effort to lock them in that closet. Maybe his minions. I don't know. But Eon starts going into further. So Eon brought all three of them here because he needs Ben. He decided to let Max and Gwen watch. And so we get some more exposition from Eon and his plan, and this time we get more information about why Eon is going after Ben. He does want to use the Omnitrix to power the hands, but not the Omnitrix directly. Well, not the Omnitrix directly. It's revealed that apparently while Eon kind of goes into his history about how his race, the Cronians as they're called, were just immensely powerful. They were grand, just amazing, but they were so powerful that they wound up destroying themselves. And so Eon went on this mission and he's going to use the Hands of Armageddon to pretty much bring all the Cronians that are survived and bring them to Earth, pretty much ending all life on Earth so that the Cronians can take over. But unfortunately, and this was only something I learned while looking up from extra material, which is annoying. Eon apparently, unfortunately, in the Hands of Armageddon need a Cronian's power to bring them here. Eon unfortunately is too weak, too old. He can't use the Hands of Armageddon. As such, the reason he went after Ben is because he wants Ben to power the Hands of Armageddon. He reveals that the Omnitrix actually has a failsafe inside of it. A failsafe that whenever Ben transforms, it pretty much keeps Ben's mind dominant, and so that the alien DNA doesn't overwhelm his mind and make him become someone else. As such, because of this, Eon states that he can easily override this little. He states that he can actually easily override this because he knows intimately about the Omnitrix, and he reveals that Ben was actually the major reason why he came back in time in the first place, because his big plan is to deactivate the failsafe on the Omnitrix, put his DNA on there, and then transform Ben into him, so that Ben can power the Hands of Armageddon, which I'll get into when I start talking about what I liked and disliked in the movie, as this one did confuse me a little when I actually rewatched this. But as such, apparently the plumbers have been keeping this a secret because, as Eon stated, he came back entirely for Ben, which, now that I think about it, really isn't that big an issue. So, anyway, I'll just skip it then. Pretty much, Eon manages to actually get his hands on the Omnitrix now because they're all tied up, so they can't do anything. He caused the Omnitrix to turn purple, signaling that the failsafe is turned off. And he turns the Omnitrix dial and revealing a silhouette that looks exactly like him, same coat, outline, everything. So he transforms Ben, and instead of the usual green flash that usually comes whenever Ben transforms, Ben just convulses, drifts. There's just waves going over his energy, and he shifts into the Eon form, which is essentially the actor who plays Eon, Christian Anholt, in the same outfit, but without any of the makeup. So he gets free of these because now he's powerful enough, and Eon leaves because there can't be two Eons around, and pretty much Ben is no longer in control as he talks about how he's free and he's free, that everyone's screwed, and so he goes to the hands and empowers them, and as he does, this whole fleet of Cronians appears in the sky above Bellwood. But as Ben's doing this, Gwen manages to get herself and Max free by getting a wrench in the back of Max's pocket. That's a laser wrench, which is pretty cool. She uses it to break their chains, and Max manages to get Ben away from the hands and so to try and find a way to depower them, he gets two power cables and charges them in. But it's obviously not doing well for Max, so Gwen, fearing for her life, manages to get Ben's attention, but Ben still has the Eon personality is still in control of Ben. So he starts cornering her, just gives off a few more warning blasts as she keeps telling about. She tries to convince him that she knows Ben's in there. He can fight back. He can get out of this. Yeah, he can get out of this. He does all this stupid stuff. It's the same guy that she pinned down when she pinned down when they were 5, and he cried. Who doesn't wear colored socks as they think he colors his feet, which is weird. But I'm not gonna go into any more detail. I'm just trying to list off any more details. But at that point, the plumbers arrive because the principal who got knocked into the... Sorry, glasses. But the principal who got knocked into the dodgeballs actually got out of being trapped because he was in the school infirmary. So he managed to come in and save them. But Eon Ben manages to causes all the minions to surround them, but just before he can vaporize Gwen, he starts struggling. You can see him visibly moving, and so he convulses. And at that point, Ben manages to regain control, and he uses Eon's powers to destroy his minions. And so now that everything is good, he pulls back his coat, revealing the symbol of the Omnitrix, because that's in every one of his transformations, and he uses that to transform back to normal. And so as such, he, Gwen, and the rest of the plumbers manage to get Max away from the hands, which pretty much shuts them down and causes all the Cronians to disperse. In the meantime, everyone's just happy, saying everything is good, and Ben and Gwen are off to a talent show, which isn't really that important to the plot, admittedly, even though it kind of serves as the ending. I'm just not mentioning that because the big conflict is with Eon, so pretty much the stuff with the talent show is just kind of secondary stuff that you would see in this sort of thing, but never mind. So as they're leaving, Ben's wondering if he can still go Eon, even though he might not want to. But then as he turns around, he sees everyone is frozen in time, and then the real Eon comes back, and yes, he is mad, like really mad, because his race is gone. Hands are no longer functioning. Ben is no longer a Cronian. He is pissed, and he wants Ben dead. So he chucks Ben across and right into the tall ceiling, but Ben manages to go wild mud, and they get into a rather lackluster fight scene, but where Eon almost shoots Gwen, but Ben is able to save her and uses her frozen form to knock him into the hands of Armageddon and supposedly destroy him, only not really, as he reappears in Ultimate Alien, and I'll talk about that when I'm done with the summary. So, Eon's destroyed, everyone's unfrozen, Ben and Gwen manage to get to the talent show, the Omnitrix times out, so they use it as a magic trick because they're actors magicians. They get second place, which I think is fine enough because they didn't have time to practice. They only did one trick, but it was with one of the alien heroes, so I think that kind of warrants something. And so everyone just goes off, and so Ben, Gwen, and Max go off to celebrate as hints of a future adventure come in. So, spent 20 minutes talking about the plot. I don't know why. I really don't. But let me talk about what I like and dislike about the plot. First off, what I like is that in some ways it does carry the spirit of the cartoon in it. It actually does have a few funny lines. There are some nice interactions with the character. There are some nice interactions, and it actually does feel like in some ways that I am more watching the live action version of the cartoon. Ben and Gwen, like some things that are the ways Ben and Gwen work off each other. Max, some nice bits of humor, some nice bits of seriousness from the plumber. Nice bit of seriousness, the plumbers. Even some of the line, even during the times when Ben's alien, we see him acting more like he does in the show, which it's not a constant. It's something that happens in this movie. We see him interacting with the people. And there are some things that feel like they would fit in. Like there's one scene in the movie that, admittedly, when it was over, I just thought to myself, you could cut it out and it wouldn't change the plot. But admittedly, it does help exemplify Ben's. It does really work into Ben's personality. As Ben's at a malt shop, hasn't been fitting in school, and at this point in time, he was going to get into the talent show to try and fit back in and go and somehow, which I don't know. Really, it's just it's dumb how he gets in because I've auditioned for talent shows before, didn't get in because I never practiced. Those aren't good memories, but anyway, Ben and Gwen managed to just get in by saying we want to be in the talent show. Yeah. So pretty much the scene, it's rather funny because Ben, as people are making fun of Ben more and more, Ben just says, you know what, screw this. And earlier on, he got a pep talk or Max to try and fit in, be a normal kid. And pretty much Ben's ideal is, you know what, screw that. They're making me mad. I'm going alien. So he goes gray matter when he wanted to go forearms, and so he pretty much causes everything in the malt shop to go nuts. It's a rather amusing scene. It's really nice. It doesn't serve any moment in the plot. It really doesn't if you actually think about it in the grand scheme. But it is just amusing to watch. And there are just more funny lines. If you actually like I mentioned Ben just going I mentioned Ben doing the photo bomb, doing the photo bomb with Gwen. It actually is kind of a funny reveal with Constantine Jacobs. Like they find his age beyond belief because Ben, Gwen, and Max find his age beyond anything body, and he just looks like he's dead. So Ben's just poking his hand, and then suddenly he just grabs his hand and is like, I'm not dead! And it's just kind of amusing to see Ben scream, and his hand actually does come off. It's gruesome, and it actually is just kind of funny seeing the reactions. So, in some ways, it does actually feel like Ben 10. It actually does have some of the similar humor, some of the same seriousness, and so forth. And I might as well go off on a tangent here. I love Eon. I mean, he's not one of my favorite. I mean, rewatching this, he's not as great as I remember him to be, but he is still a good villain. I do like him. I love the coat. I love the design. I love the helmet. The very first scene with him sets up what kind of a villain he is. I mean, at least just kind of the generic destroy things kind of villain. But I love the design. I just love black. I love black. It is one of, and I'm wearing a Black Lantern ring, but I love black. I love just seeing the slick black trench coat, the glowing gauntlets on his arms, the helmet just being pitch black. Just the way and then when we actually do see him, I love it, and I love his voice. I love how Christian Anholt does Eon, and honestly, he's my favorite out of all the Eons that we've seen in the show, because he does reappear later on. He is, I think, the best. He's the one that exemplified it. He has fun. He's serious, but he does have some funny lines here and there. And I think it works. And all the lines and I love his delivery. And it's probably just because he's British. I like British actors, but I like him. I love his design. I love his powers. And honestly, because of that, I'm not going to go into too much detail about Ben's version of Eon, because while it is technically one of the aliens on his watch, for the majority of the time he's transformed, he's not Ben. He's Eon. He's Eon. He's doing evil things, and admittedly, he still looks intimidating because as I mentioned, it's Christian Anholt. Ben's version of Eon looks exactly like the regular version of Eon, except he's not wearing the helmet, and he's not wearing the helmet, and it's Christian Anholt without any makeup, which that's also a nice little touch. As the movie goes on, you can see Eon just aging little by little as the movie goes on. Like the first time you can actually see his face, he does look somewhat young, but then as it goes on, you can see more circles around his eyes, more wrinkles in his skin. It actually he does it's actually a nice little touch. It's actually a nice little touch. As such, I'm not going to go into too much detail of the alien. I think because again, I like Eon. I like him as a villain. And I like the transformation for the same reasons. It's just he's a villain. He looks intimidating. He sounds intimidating. Got awesome powers. I like him. And just trying to think. I'm just trying to think. I really am trying to think what else I can talk about that I liked in this movie. I mentioned that there were funny lines. I think they were. I mentioned how I liked the line. How some things did feel like they were part of the show, and that's actually kind of what I feel about the movie as a whole. There are things in there that I think do represent the show and what it is, but admittedly, there are things that I feel they don't. I think a good example of this is we do meet Ben's parents, and while I'm not talking about that, I might as well talk about that. You can tell that the Goodbye and Good Riddance episode took a lot. Actually, took a few things from this. Actually, did take some things from this movie, or maybe the movie took from that episode. I don't know, but because this is where we learn the name of Ben's town is Bellwood, and just like in Goodbye and Good Riddance, because I don't think I talked about this because I didn't really think it was important. The sign actually for Bellwood says the most normal town in the USA, and of course we see there's Ben, like in Goodbye and Good Riddance, Ben's parents' names are Sandra and Carl. And of course, we remember that Max is Carl's father. But here's one big difference between the show and between Ben between what we saw Ben's parents in Goodbye and Good Riddance and Ben's parents here, and by extension Ben 10 Alien Force, I suppose. Ben's parents are hippies. I'm not dancing around it. They're hippies. They act like that. Like here's their parenting approach to Ben. They're pretty much just free spirit, man. And admittedly, it does have some they say that everyone in their household is an equal. They don't want to restrict Ben. You gotta call them by their first names, yada yada yada. It's dumb. It is admittedly dumb. And I'm not saying that the show doesn't have dumb moments, but pretty much the majority of the scenes with them just kind of feel a little cringeworthy. And then of course there's also the actors. Now I'm not going to bash all the actors in this movie, as the actors when it comes to the actors who play Ben and Gwen, physically they do somewhat resemble the roles, kind of. Graham Phillips, the boy who played Ben, does resemble Ben, except he has curly hair, somewhat, and he does an all right job portraying Ben in all Ben's regular eccentricities, and the actor who I forgot who played Gwen. I'm sorry. I even remember seeing it in the beginning of the movie with the opening credits, which actually is another thing I love. The movie has an awesome rock version of the Ben 10 theme. It is just something I love listening to. It's just very fun. But anyway, she does well. It's pretty much the same thing. She does well with getting across Gwen's personality and eccentricities, but I will admit they're not really great actors. Well, I'm not going to get on them for this. I'm not going to really get on them for this because, one, they're child actors, or they were child actors. At this point, they're probably grown up. But pretty much, and if they are watching this, I apologize. I really do. You're not bad. I hope you moved on to do other things. I am not bashing you. Do not insult me on Twitter. I really don't want to be insulted. I'm just a humble 21-year-old that watches a children's cartoon every Friday. I really need a life. But anyway, after my own sadness aside, I'm not not going to get mad at them because they're child actors and they're not really child actors, you don't really expect a lot from child actors. They're child actors. You don't expect high art. You don't expect crap. But you don't expect high art. They're allowed to make mistakes like that age. And I don't know them, so I'm not going to insult them. And on top of that, the second reason I'm not going to get too hard, it's a made-for-TV movie. As such, they're not going to expect it to be as high quality as other things. But one casting decision that I, honest to God, think was wrong was Lee Majors as Grandpa Max. And I'm not saying Lee Majors is a bad actor. He is a good actor. He's a good actor in this movie. It's just that it's just that when you actually look at Lee Majors and then compare him to Max Tennyson, they don't fit. They don't look anything alike. Here's an example. Max has a big gut, Hawaiian shirts, strong guy, and while he does, and he's just pretty much a fun grandpa. He does kind of talk he talks very similar to Ben and Gwen. In the movie, Lee Majors is thin. He does wear Hawaiian shirts every once in a while. And he does have a few funny lines that you'd expect out of Max. Of course the keeping in track with Max eating weird food. Excuse me. Lee Majors does have a few scenes where he offers just weird stuff to Ben and Gwen. But he kind of sounds like a redneck. He's got that redneck voice, the lower voice, and he even uses little phrases like getting gone. Like it doesn't fit. Look, he doesn't sound like Max should, and physically he doesn't look like Max, which I don't like. And it's not Lee Majors' fault. I just think it was miscast. He didn't. Honestly, I think really when it comes down to it, he shouldn't have played Max Tennyson. He's a good actor. This just wasn't the role for him. As for the rest of the actors, I think they all did nice. I think they all did fine. The kid actors again aren't the greatest actors, and I'm not just talking about Ben and Gwen. I think the best child actors in this movie were the kids they got to play Cash and JT. As Cash is obviously the jerk, is obviously the same jerky bully, and I think he's actually better than in the TV show, just constantly as he actually does when actually is kind of a kid and is just kind of always in your face. And then you got JT as this constant yes man. Even more so than in the show, as several times Cash tells him to shut up as he's just praising him in his glorious insults. It's just hilarious, but I don't really think I can really talk about the actors that much. So the next thing I'll talk about is probably the aliens, and admittedly I like them. I admit they're fake. They're fake as all heck, and when they're on screen, I can tell they're not really there. But for live action translations of Ben's aliens, I think they're fine. And in the movie, we get 4. Again, technically 5 with Eon, but he's an actual actor, and even then, this is his own. And even then, Ben's not even in control for the majority of the time. So I don't know, but anyway, whatever. Pretty much. We got the first alien we see is Heat Blast, and he looks nice as you can see the fire and molten rock just constantly shifting whenever he moves. Gray Matter definitely looks kind of small and slimy. Diamond Head, I kind of want to say he's the worst, but I don't know. He does look more rocky and bulky, and doesn't really feel like it. But it's a rocky and bulky. I think he could have been done better. And then there's Wild Mutt. It looks like they put a bit more effort into Wild Mutt, but I don't know. He still looks a little off. It's probably because of the CG. But he's passable. And here's kind of something funny that I kind of found interesting. Out of all the aliens in this movie, Wildmutt's the only one that is still voiced by the actor who played him on the show, D. Bradley Baker. All the other aliens, for some reason or another, have different voice actors, which I don't get. It's live action, but it's obviously these aliens are going to be CG'd and they were going to be voice acted. Of course, why couldn't you get Why couldn't you get the actors on the show? Is it because you got live action actors, so of course you couldn't be biased in that regard? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't really understand. As such, it's not really something that really gets. It's not. As such, it's just a pet peeve, and it's still cool to see them. It's just that, and again, it's still cool to see them, even though they're obviously not there. But I'm okay with it. And again, it's made for TV movie, so of course the CG isn't going to be that great. But I will give it crap for one thing, something that Ben 10 is good at, and that this movie is only okay with, okay to meh with. The fight scenes. The fight scenes are not that great. They're not awful, but they didn't really work. But I don't think they fully worked. when it comes down to the fight scenes, most of them are usually actors who are actually doing fighting, or Ben's aliens going up against some other foe. And this is where my big problem comes in. The fight scenes are not that dynamic. When it comes down to fight scenes, it's either Ben using his powers or just hand to hand combat. And admittedly, the choreography of hand to hand combat is nice, especially when, like, there's in the beginning of the movie, there's a scene where Heat Blast actually is fighting off Eon's minions. And it does for the most part actually look like an actual fight scene, but it's not as dynamic, admittedly. Especially since when it comes down to fight scenes in the show, what makes them awesome is the fact that Ben utilizes his powers and he uses his alien powers to the fullest of what he can do, and it really does work. It's that here you don't see much with Heat Blast, and admittedly that's the problem with all the other aliens. They don't really work to their fullest potential. Well, except for Gray Matter, but even then I think it's because Gray Matter's power is his brain, and so he just goes nuts with it. But even then, it just kind of feels dulled down. And then there's also just trying to integrate it with the human actors. It doesn't work. Like I mentioned, the very first fight scene, and then just like going back to the very first fight scene with Heat Blast as he's fighting through them, the camera keeps shifting between just focusing on Heat Blast throwing a punch, and you only see his chest and maybe his head, to going back and forth. And then just seeing the alien, and just seeing what some of Eon's minions fight, because they're obviously actors in suits. They don't mesh, and then of course. And then when there actually is dynamic fight scenes, like there's a fight scene, like I mentioned before, when Eon and his minions get into the plumber base and they attack by the plumbers, it actually does look like well choreographed with actual fight scenes, good flips, kicks, etc. But the camera is just so shaky and all over the place, you can barely see it, and as such, it's not really that dynamic, and I can't really make out what's going on, and the editing just jumps all over the place. You never focus on one thing for more than 2 seconds, even at that. It's just jumpy all over the place. And then when there are actually fight scenes with Ben's aliens, as I mentioned, they're dulled down. There's a fight scene between Ben and as I mentioned before, there's a scene where Ben and Eon are in the gym. Ben goes Diamond Head, starts shooting him. The fight scene consists of Eon blasting at Ben blocking with his diamond arm, and then shooting projectiles at him, throwing him into the wall. That's all. That's the entire fight scene. And then there's the final fight scene between Eon and Wildmutt. It consists of Eon shooting another blast, Ben charging at him, and for some dumb reason he doesn't move. Why? You could have more fun with that. And I'm guessing it's because they couldn't integrate the live action with the CG. And it is a flaw. Because of this, the fight scenes aren't as dynamic as they should normally be. And even if they can be more dynamic, as close to the close quarters combat, it doesn't mesh and it doesn't work. And I don't like that. It really is a problem. As such, I'm trying to think, what else can I talk about with this movie? I can't really think of anything else to talk about in the movie, except for one thing. Pretty much, I think the final thing to know about this movie is the fact that what is just kind of its canonicity for the series. My guess is, when it was first aired, this movie was kind of, for the most part, canon. Pretty much in the early days of Alien Force, they didn't acknowledge the movies. Actually, throughout Alien Force, they didn't acknowledge the movies. There was like some mention, as when you see the Rust Bucket again, it's called Rust Bucket 2, implying that the first one's gone, so there's that. But the movie itself was pretty much wiped from canon. It was gone. Okay, kind of sort of wiped from canon. Because I mentioned this because Eon does come back in Ben 10. And they do acknowledge that the events of this movie did occur, just not to the Ben Tennyson of the main timeline. They met his research. He comes back, and they say that the events of this movie happened to another Ben, another timeline, and as such, Ben himself doesn't know who Eon is, and it leads to a kind of entertaining storyline with a dumb retcon, which I don't understand. And I use my own personal headcanon to see how it fits into the storyline they have here, because I'm not gonna reveal it if you don't know about it. But here's the thing: in this movie, they say that Eon is an alien, a Cronian to be precise. In later versions, they say something else, and I don't think it works. As such, I try and integrate it so that maybe something happened that made Eon from before into what something happened that caused Eon to become what he is via. I want to spoil it. I so want to spoil it, but I can't. I don't I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen Ultimate Alien or stuff in Omniverse with Eon. But otherwise, it's a dumb retcon, but that's for another time for someone else. I don't know. But bottom line, pretty much this movie is just kind of sort of non-canon. And as I mentioned in Goodbye and Good Riddance, this was when it came down to Ben 10 doing the back to real life and summer ending storylines. They did it 3 times, and the first 2 times were non-canon. The first one was considered canon for a while until Ultimate Alien retconned it out. And then the second time they did it was non-canon before it even aired, so as such, it was not what it was. But otherwise, the third attempt, which we'll be seeing next week, was when it was finally made canon, and I'll talk about that then. But otherwise, I'm getting off topic. I want to go back. Pretty much, I've talked about all I really want to talk about for the movie, and as such, what do I think of it? I think it's just fun. I think it's okay. Nothing great. It's not. It's just it kind of floats between good and okay, though leaning more towards okay, because it does have some nice acting, some nice lines. Some pathos I think don't work, especially when it looks like Max is gonna die, but Ben. It's a hokey. It leads to a hokey line. It leads to a hokey speech, hokey acting. It's just dumb. I don't like it. But bottom line, it leads to some. There's some things that work. There's some things that work. There's some things that actually do feel like they would belong in the show. I feel like they belong in the show. There are some things that I feel could be worked on, especially with the more serious moments. And I forgot to mention one more flaw. One more flaw that I mentioned in Secret of the Omnitrix, though I didn't mention here because honestly it wasn't as prevalent because this movie isn't as long as Secret of the Omnitrix. Ben doesn't go alien a lot in this movie, and the excuse is because of Eon. Whenever Eon gets too close, he messes with the Omnitrix and then he does something to the Omnitrix and then starts messing with it to try and turn Ben into him, and which causes the Omnitrix to malfunction, so Ben can't go alien. My guess is in reality they didn't have to spend as much money on the CGI, but it's not it's not prevalent because this movie isn't as long as Secret of the Omnitrix, and when the big gap between when Ben goes Gray Matter and Ben goes Diamond Head isn't as large as Ben going up Chuck in Incarsicon and then going Forearms on Xenon. It's nothing great. It's a minor flaw, admittedly, in comparison to Secret of the Omnitrix. So otherwise, I'm not going to go into too much detail. In fact, I almost forgot about it. So, again, otherwise, I think this movie is just okay. As a live action, personally, as a Ben 10 fan, I did enjoy it when it first came out, and even not years later, I do like the fact that it's I do like what it is. A live action Ben 10 that does actually try to be part of the series and have fun and actually have fun having a cool villain, a good story, a good story, a storyline that actually does have some nice a storyline that actually does have some nice flow to it. Yeah, some humorous lines. I think my biggest problem. It's just that otherwise it's just okay. Because some storyline, some pathos and lines don't really reach as much as they would like. The fight scenes aren't as creative. The CGI is fake as heck, which I can't really hold to the movies. I can't really hold against the movie because again, made for TV. But otherwise, if you are a Ben 10 fan and you want to see live action Ben 10, I would still recommend it. And like Secret of the Omnitrix, it's just nice, silly fun for Ben. It's just nice, silly fun, but if I have to compare between the two, I'd say Secret of the Omnitrix is better, but only by a little. So, yeah. That's really all I have to say. So, thank you for watching. We were actually a little bit longer than the Secret of the Omnitrix vlog. I'm guessing it's because of the plot summary. That lasted 20 minutes. That shouldn't have been. But anyways, thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and tune in next week for the final video in the Ben 10 retrospectives, though we're still going to be doing something else later, as we look at the final movie that was made as part of classic Ben 10, Ben 10 Destroy All Aliens. So, again, thanks for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I'll see you next week. Take care.